Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I am your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Mark's YouTube channel and the Dragon Suplex Podcasting Network. It's been a while, guys. It's been a while since I've talked to you. I've been busy, busy. I saw Rage Against the Machine last Sunday, the Sunday after Summer Slam, and then I saw ZZ Top of all bands on Friday. And I got a pretty busy schedule. I work 6 days a week, do a lot of things. So taking up 2 of my nights with concerts like that, I could lose time to do a podcast. But, we'll get into everything wrestling. We'll get everything boxing. We're going to have a show a little bit later. We're going to be talking about Summer Slam, even though you guys have probably already listened to a few reviews of that by now. We're going to be talking about Ric Flair's last match. We're going to be talking about the G1. But shit, let's talk about these concerts. I mean, Rage Against the Machine was insane. Bucket list moment for me. Run the Jewels opened. I've had tickets to this show for like 3 years. So in a way, I spent like more money than I've ever spent to go to a concert before. But in other ways, it was like pretty much free because, that money would have been long gone anyways had I, not chosen to go to this show 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago or whatever it was. ZZ Top went with the old man. It was fun, but kind of coming off the heels of the Rage Against the Machine show, it kind of I was watching ZZ Top thinking, well, this isn't Rage. They never told me they were going to be Rage. They never alluded to being Rage Against the Machine. But since ZZ Top wasn't Rage Against the Machine, it kind of put a damper on the whole night. But then I've been watching G1. I've even been watching a little bit of G1 at work, trying to squeeze it all in. I've watched 50 G1 matches, and I'm going to rank them all for you a little later. I'm also going to adjust the mic a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear me a little better. Hopefully you guys could hear me before, because I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to edit. Like I said, I'm a busy man, just like Tyson Fury, trying to be the prime minister. Unlike Jake Paul canceling fights, trying to get a fight with KSI, it not working out. And then there's video that comes out of him sparring with the guy he was supposed to fight and kind of getting his ass kicked. So we don't know what's going on with Jake Paul, but it looks like Logan Paul kind of jumped him. It looked like Logan Paul was always ahead of Jake, and then all of a sudden Jake, for I would say 2020 to 2021, jumped Logan Paul. And now I think 2022, things are back right with the world. Logan Paul is now a little bit more famous than Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul's boxing career, it's definitely a lull. WWE, though, been flipped upside down, or should I say lifted up in one corner with a giant tractor, with Triple H being the head of creative. Karrion Kross attacks Drew McIntyre like a few weeks before Clash at the Castle. That was crazy. Didn't see that coming, but I can see a lot of these guys or girls that got released, kind of showing back up in WWE, kind of like Triple H's guys kind of being brought back. We'll go into SummerSlam here a little bit. It was a pretty great show, but honestly, I kind of have enjoyed every WWE premium live event since WrestleMania, but this one I feel like was pretty damn good. Bianca, and Becky Lynch kick off the night. Apparently, Becky Lynch got hurt in this match, but it was still a pretty damn good match. I mean, I couldn't tell, so that's a pretty good sign. I mean, Bianca wins with the KOD, fixing her loss from a year ago, so a little bit of long-term storytelling there. Giving Bianca another stadium victory. She won at WrestleMania in 2021, and here she is winning SummerSlam in 2022, which is what you need to do, is build that repertoire of big stadium shows. It feels like that's how you make a star in WWE. Even though all this talk about attendance, it was supposed to be 70,000. It was around 30,000. WWE trying to bullshit us, saying the number is 48,000. But even 30,000 or so makes it like the third or fourth biggest show of the year. I think it puts it right up there with Wrestle Kingdom and a little bit under WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, and right behind WrestleMania. So I think even though the attendance was half of what they were looking for, it's still a giant show. And it looked like a big mega show the way they were shooting it. And I think big shows like that help re-solidify stars, re-solidify the EST of WWE, Bianca Belair. Then they decide to make, a shift in the women's division again. Bayley comes out, Io Shirai comes out, then Dakota Kai comes out. Right then and there, the WWE has a better women's division than AEW, and that's something that I think both audiences want out of the promotion that they kind of see as their favorite, and I think WWE has it now. Io Shirai coming out to Io Sky. They all three stare down Bianca, and then Becky comes in and stands beside the champion and stares down these new heels with them. That was kind of cool. They have like a camaraderie built in their rivalry. You got to love that shit. Of course, now we know Becky's going to be off for a little bit, but who is Bianca's teammates going to be now? We don't know. Maybe there might be some more signings coming, like Sasha Banks and Naomi might sign back up. Hopefully, Becky kind of stood a little closer to Bianca than Sasha did, standing next to some of these people who paid like $130 to have pictures of her taken at these Comic-Cons, which was kind of funny. But we move on talking about SummerSlam. Logan Paul versus The Miz. Logan Paul has now jumped Bad Bunny in Best Celebrity Wrestler of all time. Hell, at this point, he's jumped Mongo McMichael. He's jumped all these celebrity wrestlers that we kind of see as athletes. The frog splash through the table was awesome. Even like the Rock punch, you see that he kind of looked back at his hand before he delivered the blow, just like the Rock used to do. Looking back at his hand, super sick. He's an athlete, like I said. I don't see him becoming an all-time great, but I do see him surprising a lot of people, and I think that he can outperform McAfee hands down, especially on this show. Theory versus Lashley. These guys wrestled before, I think, and people forgot about that match. I think people are going to kind of forget about this one, too. They could have a good match, but the way they put them on the card right here at the lower middle of the card is kind of like a dead spot on the WWE pay-per-view. They always try to bring the crowd down here, and unfortunately for Bobby Lashley, I feel like he's been in that spot all year, with the Almas feud and now with this Theory feud. Judgment Day versus the Mysterios. Boring match. Finn wearing long pants. Haven't seen that before. Edge showing up. Edge coming out to that Brood entrance. I like it. Not for storyline purposes. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But you need a big, dark entrance like this for these big shows. And Undertaker's gone. Kane is gone. So they're grasping at straws for these big, dark entrances. And here's Edge. And I think Cody is now going to take the role of the too much pyro while the Rock song plays entrance. And that's the spot that Edge used to have. So everyone's getting bumped up here in these big shows. Edge coming out and kind of is mad at Judgment Day. I don't even know what the hell is going on with this. That stable, that faction was ruined ever since Edge was put through a table by Judgment Day. It was so weird, too, because Edge pinned Finn at the last pay-per-view, and then they took Finn into the group and then destroyed Edge. It made so little sense. And you go back to how good of a run this company is doing since WrestleMania, but then you look at this group, and this group is just complete bullshit. Like, Damian Priest comes out and kind of ruins the Edge versus AJ match at WrestleMania. That wasn't a good start. And now here we are at SummerSlam, and Edge isn't even in the group anymore. Like, what the hell is going on with this thing? Pat McAfee and Baron Corbin. The choir wasn't as funny as I think they wanted it to be, but it was kind of, I was kind of taken aback by this cosplaying like Joker in the front row for no reason. He wasn't at a comic book convention or a movie. He was at wrestling dressed as a character that's not in wrestling. It kind of took me away from everything going on But I also think Pat McAfee was a little sloppy in this match, a little bit more sloppy than he has been in the NXT match or the Mania match. Now that he's wrestled before and we know he's good, he's gonna have to do a little more for me to kind of be impressed now. So he's not stepping up his game. He's kind of diminishing. I mentioned this to my old man. My dad says it was probably because he was wrestling Baron Corbin. That remains to be seen. If he gets a match at Survivor Series or another match at Mania, I'm going to be kind of weary of it. The Street Profits versus the Usos. Jeff Jarrett as the referee didn't really do shit, but that's kind of what Jeff Jarrett does. So I usually would react negatively to that, but you got to kind of give him a slow golfing clap at this point because, he's weaseled his way into the biggest shows of the year and not really done shit at them. SummerSlam, GCW night at the Hammerstein Ballroom, Ric Flair's last match. Jeff Jarrett has been there through it all and has not done shit for it. But somehow he's always there. So it's kind of interesting to see the backstage politics play out right here on the screen. Jeff Jarrett appears out of nowhere and inserts himself in these big-time shows. 1D, 1, 2, 3, Usos get the victory. If Roman has the titles, Usos should have the titles. So I'm cool with this victory. Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey has Liv Morgan in an armbar, but in doing so, she kind of put her shoulders on the mat. I found out from another podcast that this was the Kurt Angle versus the Tough Enough opponents finish because Kurt got caught in an armbar and referee had to save him. So he counts for a 3. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it doesn't really do much for anybody here because Liv Morgan looks weak. Ronda looks stupid. You don't really care who has the title, or I don't really care. I know Liv Morgan's kind of over with, I guess, the people that watch week to week. I only watch the big shows. And I don't think Ronda's over with anybody. She kind of shit on the business several times. And even if you make her a heel, she doesn't really like wrestling fans. So it's just, it's go away heat. It's X-Pac heat for me. And it's been that way for a while. But now we're going to be talking about the craziest match in SummerSlam history. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. The spectacle makes up for the lackluster Mania match, in my opinion. Brock riding down in a tractor just was a crazy visual. And then he hits a Thez press off of it. They have a normal match, like last man standing standards normal. That is until he uses the goddamn tractor to hoist the corner of the ring up, blocking the people who had the expensive floor seats views. This was a moment that we will always remember. This is as big as the superplex from the Big Show off the top rope that broke the ring. This is, as big as Foley going through a cell. This is kind of a visual spectacle thing that we're all going to remember. It was cool. It was fucking cool. The Usos come out. Theory comes out. Couldn't cash in, but trying to. Heyman gets F5 through a table after pleading with the Beast to stop beating up on Roman. But for somehow, throughout all of that shenanigans happening, Roman Reigns gets the victory. What a match. The Rock better be lined up for Mania because that's the only way that WWE is going to top this SummerSlam incident. It wasn't even a match at sometimes. It was just this crazy incident that happened. And it looks like maybe Brock Lesnar, that might be his last match in WWE. I think he was doing this big spectacle to maybe get another paycheck. I don't know. Maybe get another contract going on. I'm not sure. But this was a really fun time and great for WWE. AEW Rampage numbers are shit. AEW Dynamite numbers are kind of floating stagnant. Going into 2023, I know we're not even, we're halfway done with 2022, but going into 2023, WWE might be the hotter promotion. And I'm not talking about bottom line stuff like money, but just like hyped up promotion. I think WWE might be a little bit more hyped up than AEW, and that's the first time since 2019. I mean, you got the Game at the helm. You got, this super clean and prestigious ship being guided through the critical seas of the modern wrestling fans' praise, and then Triple H gets out of the boat and sticks his flag into the hearts and minds of the internet wrestling community. I can see it. I know that analogy was hard to follow, but you guys know where I'm going with this. I can see WWE getting hip again. And that's what they're missing. They're big. They make more money than AEW. If they can get hip again, AEW is dead in the water. I know I love AEW. I'm taking a little break to watch the G1. But it's just going to be a little bit interesting to watch what happens here, because NXT was a hot product, and then it lost to AEW in the ratings, so they changed it up. It's now doing worse than AEW in the ratings, and AEW is now kind of staying stagnant. So I think it kind of would help both promotions. Clash at the Castle and All Out Weekend we'll see where the momentum's going, but I can see it going WWE's way. People are watching, Mance Warner come out, wondering who he is. Why does he have a title shot? And then people are seeing Karrion Kross come out and getting excited, him attacking Drew. It just feels a little bit more fresh. It seems like we're kind of getting what we were supposed to be getting when Karrion Kross originally debuted. But AEW also has a lot of injured performers up their sleeve. Kenny, Punk, Cole. It's just going to be interesting to watch what happens going into the fall. But not going into the fall is Ric Flair's career, because we watched his last match the night after SummerSlam. I guess if you don't count his Puerto Rican escapades, I don't know. I guess he was just a manager in Puerto Rico over the weekend. But yeah, it was kind of funny. It was a big deal about his last match. And then he's like, we got unfinished business in Puerto Rico. Is he going to be like the Kiss of the wrestling world? Just years and years and years of a farewell tour? I hope so. I think that'd be hilarious. It'd be pretty carny. It'd be pretty Ric Flair. But yeah, we had Ric Flair's last match a few weekends ago. I did not see the rest of the show, but the video package going into Ric Flair's last match was WWE level good. The best part of the show, or of the match. And listeners know how much I love the WWE video packages. Mick Foley at ringside, Bret Hart at ringside, Undertaker, Kid Rock. Kid Rock made out with 0 people at Ric Flair's last match, which is more than I can say at SummerSlam. That popped me. That was hilarious. I guess that lady that he made out with, the heavyset lady, is a comedian. Man, that was fucking funny. I don't know how that came to be, but it's pretty good shit there. Wouldn't that be hilarious if Kid Rock just did that makeout thing over again, and then anytime they cut to Kid Rock in the stands of somewhere, it was like a running gag that he would make out with that lady? I think that'd be pretty fucking funny. I mean, shit, he could even do it into his old age, and it would just get funnier and funnier, like Kid Rock making out with heavy-set ladies at wrestling shows could be like when you see Stan Lee popping up in MCU movies or something like that. But back to the match, Jeff Jarrett kind of stole the show with the entrance, making up for his uselessness at SummerSlam, coming out and just pissing off everyone in the front row. People were just having a ball, being mad at Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett seemed like they were having a ball, being pissed at them. I knew we were in trouble when Ric Flair came out and all covered up in his robe, he still looked old. And then he took off the robe and revealed his Cassius Ohno cosplay of a ring attire, covering up his torso, not wearing the tights. And I mean, I guess I get that. But then when the bell sounded, this guy looked like he was dead. He looked like he was literally about to die at certain parts. I thought they were going to have Jay Lethal and Andrade work most of the match, but it seems like they couldn't really figure out what was going on with Ric Flair. He legitimately looked hurt. He bladed. And then there was supposed to be a part where he had Jarrett in the figure 4, and Jarrett was supposed to pass out, but it just looked like Flair was passing out the whole time, so they just kind of called the match, said Flair won, and then Flair cuts a promo saying he's going to go out with Kid Rock tonight in Nashville. It was ridiculous. It was not how I'd want to be remembered, and you could kind of tell Undertaker and Bret Hart were all looking at him like, Jesus Christ, you shouldn't have done this, but he did it. It was entertaining. It was, but for all the wrong reasons. It's crazy to think about in 2022. We're like, we're praising the celebrity matches from SummerSlam, and we're shitting all over the Ric Flair match for Jim Crockett Promotions. But that's how it is, man. Times change, and maybe Ric Flair doesn't, which might say something there. But going into the G1, I haven't talked to you guys since show 6, and I'm almost done with show 12. So I've seen, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I haven't seen the main event of show 12, but I've seen 50 matches, and I have 50 G1 matches ranked. But this is kind of convoluted now. This list is hard to follow. I'm like kind of forgetting some matches and how good some matches were versus other matches, and I think I've ranked some matches too high. But nonetheless, here is the list. Number 50, Bad Luck Fale versus Toriano, night 7. 49, Evil versus Kenta, night 6. 48, Juice Robinson versus Yujiro, night 11. 47, Fale versus Okada, night 9. 46, Finlay versus Yujiro, night 3. 45, Sonata versus Jay White, night 1. See, that's ranked a little too low now that I'm reading it off. 44, Fale versus Archer, night 3. 43, Archer versus Tom Lawler, night 6. 42, Yano versus Okada, night 4. 41, Okan versus Sonata, night 3. 40, Okan versus Chase Owens, night 6. 39, Yano versus Jonah, night 2. 38, Jonah versus Lawler, night 8. 37, Ospreay versus Yujiro, night 7. 36, Tama Tonga versus Chase Owens, night 3. 35, Jay White versus Chase Owens, night 9. 34, Tom Lawler versus Yano, night 10. 33, Archer versus Yano, night 12. 32, LP versus Yujiro, night 5. That was a pretty good match. Talked about it last time. That stands out a little bit for me. They put a little story into it. 31, Hanare versus Zack Sabre Jr., night 4. I was really looking forward to that match. It kind of brought me down. I thought they were doing something special with Hanare after the Tanahashi victory, but it was just an average match. That's why might be why it's ranked as low as it is. Number 30, Fale versus Cobb. That match was saved because Cobb picked up Fale and then did the Tour of the Islands, but of course we talked about that again. There was a little bit of a lull in the G1. Like, no new matches that I'm going to talk about made it to the top 5, and only 3 matches out of 6 full shows cracked the top 10. So there's like a bit of a dog days of summer. There's a dog days of the G1, and I think we're definitely at it right now because a lot of these matches, a lot of these shows, I'm kind of fatigued. So some of these matches could be a little better than the matches at the beginning, but there's like a lack of recency bias here. But moving on, Tanahashi versus Evil, night 11 at 29. 28, Okada versus Cobb, night 1. 27, Yoshihashi versus Juice Robinson, night 9. 26, Naito versus Hanare, night 11. 25, Yoshihashi versus LP, night 12. That was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. 24, Cobb versus Archer, night 9. 23, Tanahashi versus Hanare, night 1. The upset that has been proven pointless. We'll get to that a little later. 22, Kenta versus Goto, night 10. 21, Ishii versus Tama Tonga, night 7. 20, Hanare versus Goto, night 7. 19, Finlay versus Shingo, night 8. 18, Jay White versus The Great Okan, night 12. Just watched that match. 17, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Tanahashi, night 8. It looked like it was going Zack Sabre Jr.'s way, but then Tanahashi kind of stole one, and now it looks like Tanahashi's going to be kind of on a roll here. coming back to win the block. 16, Okan versus Ishii, night 10. 15, Naito versus Evil, night 9. 14, Tamatanga versus Sonata, night 10. 13, Tai Chi versus Sonata, night 5. 12, Shingo versus Yoshihashi, night 4. 11, Juice versus Shingo, night 2. That is ranked really high. But 50 matches, you kind of forget where you're putting things. You kind of get, fatigued. If you're sitting back relaxing, watching a match, with fresh eyes, rather than watching like 6 or 7 matches in a row, that kind of weighs in on you. But nonetheless, Juice and Shingo sitting at 11. Out of the top 10, though, because in the top 10, Goto versus Zack Sabre Jr., night 12. Goto, I'm becoming a fan of Goto for the first time ever because of this tournament. He's having great matches. Zack Sabre Jr. always killing it. And, night 12, they made the top 10 list. Great match. Number 9, Ospreay versus LP, night 1. Number 8, Jonah versus Cobb, night 11. What a great match. Hoss fight. 2 just big mammoth dudes running at each other for several minutes. Shoulder tackle city. And Cobb catches Jonah coming off the top one time. Couldn't land Tour of the Islands. Jonah hits the bonsai drop, torpedo, whatever they call it, to get the victory. Jonah really impressed me. This is his coming out party. This is his first G1. You got to love this shit. Ospreay versus Finlay. Night 10 sits at number 7. And Finlay, this is his first G1, and he's showing off here. He beats Ospreay in this match. Oscutter turning into a stunner. Fantastic shit. Tanahashi versus Naito, night 5. And then top 5 here. Number 5, Finlay versus Juice from night 6. Number 4, Ishii versus Jay White, night 4. Goto versus Naito, night 3, sitting at number 3. Number 2, Taichi versus Ishii in night 2. And Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kenta, night 2 is number 1. Holy shit, that was a long list. I just had to get this podcast out, guys. I know I was talking about some stuff that maybe you guys have heard a lot of other people talk about, but, hang in there with me. We're going to have more G1 coverage in the coming days, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. The dog days are done. The lull is over. Some of these stories are going to come into play. Looking at A block, you got Okada in the lead right now with 6. As far as what I'm up to date with, I am a show behind, and you guys aren't though. So Okada does lose to Jonah. So Jonah's at 4, Okada's at 6. They all have one more match, so it looks like Okada is gonna get the block here, unless Jonah could win. So Jonah's at 4, he could win one. So the block is still up for grabs, but Okada is the only one is the only one at 6. And then block B, Jay White's got 8. So I think feasibly he won this block. He's the first guy who won this block. Block C, Tanahashi has 6. I think he's going to continue to win after a rough start. Block D, okay, so I'm not up to date here, but this looks like it could be anyone's block. Ospreay with 4, Juice with 2, Yujiro with 4. Holy shit, Yujiro with 4. Shingo with 2, LP with 2, Finlay with 4. I think it's going to be Ospreay. So right now we're going to have Okada, Tanahashi, White, Ospreay, and Okada, Tanahashi, Ospreay, and White winning their respective blocks. And out of those 4, going into the G1 final, I think it's going to be Ospreay, Okada, Ospreay winning the G1. I'm going to call it here. That's what I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I appreciate you guys listening. As always, fly high. I'm out.